How's it going, everybody? Trevor Hubbs. I manage the Armed Forces Initiative for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Talking to you today about another book review. Today we're going to talk about animal weapons. Well, you can see it from back there, trying a new thing with the camera. I'm not great at this, so you're going to have to bear with me. But anyway, Animal Weapons, The Evolution of Battle by Douglas J. Emlyn. This is a really interesting book. It's basically about anything from deer antlers, beaver teeth, any kind of canines, any kind of what you would normally consider an animal weapon. The calorie input into these, it starts with beetles, works its way up to the larger megafauna that we're used to, elk, white-tailed deer, bears, cougars, all this stuff, how much energy they put into developing these weapons, like antlers, like claws, like teeth, all these things, what they give up biologically in order to make these weapons, like for example, brain size, eyesight size, just these biological kind of compromises they make to have the biggest weapon, and the biological kind of effects of those. So I'll start out with the easy one, because it's going to start with bugs, the book is, and you're going to be like, Trevor, why are you recommending me a book about bugs? I don't give a shit about bugs unless a fish is eating the bugs. Trust me, I was there. That's what I thought too. It's worth it to study. First of all, this guy isn't some nerd that studies bugs because he's into bugs. He studies bugs when he was in school because it was free, and he couldn't get the money to study big, interesting stuff, so don't judge him. But basically, you start with this beetle, right? And some beetles grow these big horns, some don't grow horns, and it's 100% genetic, right? Like there's no amount of calories that a beetle of this species can eat to make himself grow a horn. So traditionally mating is all these horned beetles just fight and duel it out, and eventually the one with the biggest horn normally wins, and he gets to mate with the most females. So then you have more beetles with these big horns. It's really interesting to study because beetles mate several times a year. You can have a lot of offspring. So what would take generations, decades to study in elk, you could study in a matter of months with beetles. Basically, you have this biological arms race between these beetles of who can grow the biggest one, who can breed with the most females, and like eventually they just get so big that in some cases even their whatever beetles have, beetle testicles like shrink, and they have less ability to mate because they're putting so much calories, so much biological energy into these horns. So how it normally works with this particular beetle species is the female like digs a hole, goes down in the hole, and like lays eggs, or whatever. That's where the female does the business and has the babies. The male stands outside the top of the hole with his big old horn, and he fights off all the other people coming in. So you still have males that have no horns, right? They lost that biological kind of battle, right? Their dad didn't have horns, so they don't have a horn, and just we're not going to work for them. So then you have like these sneaky males that burrow in behind the female while the female's down on the ground. So big dude's up there with his horn fighting people, and this dude comes in and breeds the females while the other dude is just unsuspecting. So that happens, and you have a whole generation of no horns again, and it just repeats this process, right? To where this dude is so much healthier, so much fitter because he's not putting these calories into growing a horn. He changed the name of the game, right? So you have a similar thing with elk, with a deer, how they put all these calories into growing bones on the top of their head for only 6 months a year, and then eventually, like, you could put so many calories into that you don't survive the winter, right? And then you're not making more elk or more deer because you don't have the ability to survive, right? Moving on, so then it gets into kind of what you wouldn't consider an animal weapon, like human stuff, like we are animals, right? So it goes from, like you start in like the Civil War, or Revolutionary War, it's basically who has the most dudes and the most muskets pointed the right direction. Then you get into the Civil War, where it's not about tactics, it's not about whose rifles are more efficient or anything like that. It's when Grant made the discovery, let's say, when Grant made the discovery that I have more people than the South has bullets, I can literally walk men into bullets until the South runs out of the ability to manufacture them. So that kind of dramatically changed military strategy over the course of the next 2 centuries. So you have that, so now the name of the game is how many weapons can we build? Same thing as in World War II. Like, yeah, the German tanks were a little bit better, and in fact, they were a lot better than the American tanks. But we can make 10 American tanks for every 1 German tank they can make. We can make another aircraft carrier in 6 months, but what will take the Japanese 6 years to build an aircraft carrier, right? So it's not necessarily about strategy as much as it's about how many weapons can you produce, right? And that was the name of the game, is how many people, how many ships, how many planes, all this stuff, right? Until the end of World War II. 1945, you look at August, what happened? This new technology was invented and we just wiped out a country overnight. The atomic bomb. Somebody changed the game. Somebody burrowed down and had sex with that female, making all these other things irrelevant. Doesn't matter how many ships you have. Doesn't matter how many planes you have. It matters, do you have an atomic bomb? So then you start the next 40 years called the Cold War, where Russia and the United States, everybody's trying to make these bombs. Who can make the most bombs? Who has the most atomic energy? And who has them positioned strategically throughout the world, right? Until the game changed again, September 11th, 2001, when a couple of dudes flew a plane into a building. You can't fight that with nukes. You have to do it, change the game again. A wildly interesting book. You gotta read it. It'll make you think about the world. Again, it's Animal Weapons, The Evolution of Battle by Douglas Emlen. Fantastic book. It's a little long. It's got some graphs and some charts in there, but I mean, take 2 weeks and read it. Read a little bit every night. You're gonna enjoy it. It'll be worth it. Thanks.